Boom. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. That was fun. What a roller coaster of a ride. For those of you that are new to the markets, welcome. It's always a little bit of a wild ride. Now, this was the second option that I had hoped was less likely, but looks like is going to be our longer term moment. Now, as you can see behind me, the market indicator of my green light is still green. I actually believe we are still bullish in this cycle. I'm going to go over a few of the reasons why I think that's the case. We did talk about this drop to $32,000, although I was hoping it was a spring. Maybe I was being a little bit too excited about that. We did see a big drop. I don't think it's anything to worry about, at least over the next 6 to 9 months. And it just represents a buying opportunity, and it also probably taught a lot of people why not to play with leverage. So what we're going to do is go over some ideas here and take a look. I'm just uploading Glassnode right now. We'll do this, tickety boom, and we will go to, yes, Glassnode first. Okay, so actually, let's go to the Bitcoin liquidation. So right out the gate, again, you know, we had all $1.32 billion in liquidations. I think, where was it here? From CryptoQuant to over 10.5 thousand Bitcoin was liquidated here as well. And I think that what's interesting to note here is that that means there is an extraordinary amount of long positions in the entire ecosystem at that moment. And generally, you don't want that, right? It means that there's a lot of positions that were taken that were effectively, let's say, unhealthy. And that's an important factor because it means the reason we had such an over evaluation in price was not because of spot buying. It's because there was an enormous amount of pressure in the system from people taking out 3, 5, 10x positions, maybe even 3 to 5 to 10x positions that were created months ago when Mr. Musk decided to jump in as well. So this is a good moment. This is always healthy, is to see the longs get liquidated. We have seen a lot of long positions here as in comparison with 2017 when there was almost nowhere else to get long positions. It definitely means that we are in a slightly bearish trend for probably quite some time. This has scared the crap out of all retail investors. It's good to see that the markets are finding an equilibrium for fun here. On the right-hand side, we are seeing a difference between around $6,000 to $7,000 between the perpetual futures and the spot price. There's massive arbitrage even in between Ethereum and the perpetual futures. There's around a $500 to $700 difference in between prices. Now, again, a lot of the bigger players who have money on the sidelines are just find this another time to accumulate. So we had talked about the potential to come back down to this $32,000 area, and let's clean up this chart here. I want to go over a few sentiments. Actually, we'll get rid of a few of our drawings. So boom, we'll go like that. Okay, so this here as well. Back in, actually, let's reload into our other Bitcoin chart, the perpetual futures. Okay, so I actually think that we're about to witness a much larger analog. I don't think that the bull market's over, technically speaking. Now, it's probably over for a lot of retail investors. They'll be scared away for quite some time. We're facing down the barrel of a pretty disastrous gun in many economic sectors. And that's an important thing to recognize, is that we're seeing massive inflation throughout the world right now, and it's finally hitting the consumer price index. We went over this the other day. And generally speaking, smart investors move into hard assets. I definitely wish I had built an extra few houses, because that's about how much I've witnessed the account drop over the last 24 hours. Or well, I guess let's say 72 in total. Going into hard assets is always important, but let's take a look back here. This is August 10th. So in August 10th, there was this very nice clear distribution range. And this is kind of what I was hoping wouldn't happen, but now very clear that this is the scenario. Again, the other day, back when we were around $56,000 Bitcoin, like I said, I removed a bunch of risk from the table. Probably could have removed more, but that's always a hindsight. I like not selling assets, generally speaking. Like I got one over this the other day. I'm not going to sell my house just because the price fluctuates, but More importantly, this moment here where we saw a really nice rounded top and a distribution drop significantly in price here from the top, we dropped only 18%, which wasn't huge. I think we're about to witness a larger accumulation cycle, which is these kind of two reaccumulation after decline effectively. And this is probably a really healthy thing, especially when we look at how many longs and liquidations were taken out. In the last 24 hours alone, $8.38 billion on all assets right now. That's an extraordinary amount of capital. That's a 1,000% increase effectively. And you can see that across the board here. We were sitting at 2.5 billion or 2.5 trillion in market cap, and we dropped to 1.6. So basically $1 trillion was wiped from the markets in the last 72 hours. And there's an important part to understand here that, and we went over this, that, well, first off, a good investor should think about the long term. You generally don't want to be taking positions you're not willing to sit on for the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not a trader. I like to trade every now and then, but more importantly, we're using the Wyckoff trading ranges to really find good positions. So here again, we were up at a $2.5 trillion market cap, and we fell $1 trillion. We talked about this a few times, that when people start to rush for the fire exit and the exit is only so big, everything drops significantly. So you've got Bitcoin down over the 7 days, 36%, Ethereum 40%, XRP 17%, Binance Coin down 47%. Binance Coin lost half of its value in the last 7 days. And again, this is what happens when people start to run for the door. It gets crowded and prices spike downwards, the liquidations jack up. And these, again, are probably including liquidation points that go as far back as our kind of previous accumulation range around $30,000 here. So this moment when Musk bought Bitcoin, and our kind of spike upwards, this $30,000 area. A lot of this probably is based off of even long positions that were taken at $31,000, right? Because you could have taken, let's say, a 10x position here, which I saw a lot of people on Twitter talk about, and they could have been sitting on that position. Generally, not necessarily a bad idea, but I try to remind everyone, guys, if you're new to this ecosystem, do not fucking touch leverage. Like, it is for advanced traders and for people that have enough capital to really cover everything. So again, we've gone over how this could very easily turn into a distribution. I felt like this was going to be a spring just because of the action we saw, but I didn't realize there's so much liquidation point in here. And more importantly, I think this is a temporary distribution. So in the Bitcoin bull market of 2017, when we saw the distribution finally come in, that was it. Bull market was done for years. I don't think that that's the case here. I think what we did was get rid of a bunch of newbie players. So I've gone over this many times. I think that if this was the option that we are going to see, it's likely going to be an analog that looks like this. So if we can imagine that what we're witnessing here is this, that this would be approximately the $32,000 area, we'll probably jump back up, and we'll move around in between 32,000 to 46,000 as an analog. But I just don't think the bull market is over, and that's generally what we look at for distribution as a whole: is when does the market start and when did it end? And distribution is usually more a question, I think, of is the market actually over? That's more of the important question to me, of what kind of distribution are we seeing? Are we witnessing the end of the bull market? So we'll go over, let's go to Glassnode. Okay. So here's some nice indications for Glassnode as well. And I think that these are really valuable insights. Well, they haven't updated on the 24-hour. It'll be nice to see. But we did see a huge spike come in of an extra point, like 5% of Bitcoin come into the open supply. Generally, judging from what we're looking at on the liquidations, that's probably mostly retail. Bigger institutions are not usually using a whole lot of leverage per se, because they have the spot capital. But what I want to do is actually look at the stock to flow deflection model. So again, there's two big stories going on here. Number one, well, let's start on the positive side. Let's start on the side that I personally think we're on. So we had talked about this being a likely potential that we would drop down to the $32,000. We've said that pretty much every episode. since we were here at around 56,000 on April 18th. I took out a chunk of capital. I let it sit on the side. I said, hey guys, we're right in the middle of this. I can't tell if it's going to be distribution or if we're going to have a reaccumulation after decline type mentality. Let's wait and see. But ultimately, if we couldn't hold, that we would likely visit the $32,000 area. And we did that very, very quickly. But let's take again, this is the more difficult moment to really kind of digest here, is that if you look at the lifetime of Bitcoin's price here, let's actually scroll out there. Boom. Okay, so this is the stock to flow deflection model. This shows the relative cost of producing a Bitcoin by the miners, and the cost that it is to buy one, right? So miners will probably not be selling here. I assume they took most of their profits back in December and January. We saw that in the stock to flow deflection model. Great sell points at around $40,000 to $50,000. But here, we're actually at one of the lowest stock to flow deflection models we've been at since the big dip to $3,000, the pandemic dips, and the reaccumulation after decline in August, and more notably, almost the very beginning of the bull market in July 2017, where we saw this huge dip. This is one of the lowest points we've been at in terms of what it costs to buy a Bitcoin, in terms of what it costs to make a Bitcoin. And this is one of the really difficult parts of this question, is that right now we have to imagine there's two kind of dangerous stories taking place, right? We went over the massive inflation, lumber's up almost 1,000%, corn's up 150%, soybeans are up 80%. And that's always difficult because it means the people at the bottom of the pyramid who are generally kind of working on a day-to-day basis are going to have a much harder time. And that's usually where we're not too far away from either revolution or war. And that worries me. What worries me more than the price right now is that if we do not keep some type of market sanity and we start to drop dramatically in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and all these other sectors, that this game is over, period. It doesn't matter what kind of asset you own. When we go into trying to find out what has value again, it is disastrous. I'd highly suggest a book called Dying of Money to understand what it would have been like to live through the Weimar Republic's hyperinflation, what Venezuela is going through, Zimbabwe, Colombia, multiple countries who have gone through these hyperinflation moments. So here, if you look back in 2017, we actually stayed well below the stock deflection model. We had these big retests multiple times before we broke above it. Now here, the downside is if you think that the bull market is over now, it means that our entire sector is probably done for like ever. Because there would be no incentive for the miners to keep mining at the production cost that they're producing it at, right? So the stock to flow model has been this kind of unique way to go, hey, here's why we will end up at around $1,000 or $100,000 per Bitcoin. This drop to $30,000 is the lowest price it's had in relationship to other areas and other sectors. So if we can't keep this up and Bitcoin dies, the rest of the sector will not do well. So to me, I think this is a temporary moment where we likely end up into reaccumulation. We're seeing huge wicks be eaten up here quite quickly, 25 to 30% wick on Bitcoin. I think the wick on Ethereum here on the 6 hour was just astronomical. Yeah, look at this. Look at this 6 hour wick on Ethereum. Yeah, 30% wick effectively, right? And this is where the liquidations just start to tumble, blah, 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 and they get eaten up and shoot out really, really quickly. Serum as well, very similar, huge wicks down on the 6 hour. You're talking about effectively, yeah, another 30% wick. Matic did the same thing. Look at the wick on Matic here. I think it was almost 50%. Yeah, effectively 60%, 65% wick on Matic here before the price jumped right back up. These are usually all leverage positions that have been taken quite frequently. Solana, very similar story, huge liquidation wick. But again, not the greatest exciting moment because it means most retail investors are probably going to be scared away from this sector for months. Right. But that also kind of makes sense, and it goes in line with the secondary story we're talking about here, which is the potential that what we end up doing is having a reaccumulation after decline moment where we kind of chomp around here in the $35,000 to $30,000 area before continuing much higher. Now, again, if we don't go higher, this whole sector is done. And more importantly, if we don't figure out inflation for the average individual. Like, we have more to be worried about than how much money you have in your bank account, because then you become the target. And that's one of the scariest things as well, is that these situations usually lead to war and revolution. Like do your homework. The Bolshevik Revolution, who did they aim at? They aimed at with anyone who was a productive member of society. They aimed at the farmers. They aimed at the people who were producing crops. They aimed at the people, anyone who looked like they had money. So we could be in for a real disastrous moment in society at this moment, more so than the price of Bitcoin or the way price is evaluated for our bull market potential. What I'm really worried about is if we cannot fix the bigger economic crisis that we are having. So here we'll take a look at the S&P 500. We've started to roll over here as well. This is one of our much less volatile sectors. And again here, the real nature of the story is trying to teach us something. We have seen nothing but straight up. Let's clean this chart up a little bit here. We have seen nothing but up since the pandemic, and this is due to money printing. Anytime you create this much capital in the monetary supply, you see upside, because assets are extremely valuable and paper dollars are not. This is, again, a great argument for Bitcoin in the long term, is that, well, what's the currency of the future? You know, I don't think it's going to be Dogecoin, although that they make a good currency, probably makes a better currency than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin makes a better money than Dogecoin does. So these are complex conversations. And again, what I'm more worried about is the long-term devastating effects that could come from hyperinflation at a global scale, because we're talking about revolution and war. And we've seen them start to tip over. Early last year, in March, I saw people throw Molotov cocktails in Costa Rica here, like gates closed, like food stacked, you know what I mean? We could be headed towards a much more dangerous situation. And that's really the worrying downside. Like, any of the price targets right now, I could almost care less about in comparison to the larger macro story. So we need to find some type of miracle. And Bitcoin effectively is one of these really interesting solutions that can provide a new monetary system. Ethereum can help build those rails where we have a productive economic system that builds and grows as well. So ultimately, we're in a really tricky situation where we have one failing system, and we have the potential for that new system to be built where it is more effective, more productive for everyone here. And although it's volatile, because you're still early, as far as I can tell, there's maybe only 2% of the people, maybe like just getting close to that tipping point of mass adoption, is actually here right now. So we've definitely gone into this secondary moment. I do believe what we get is a reaccumulation after decline before going higher. Again, I took a big chunk of my positions out at around $56,000 over here just because I didn't know what was going to happen. We talked about this. Distribution and reaccumulation are so deceiving. Maybe I was being a little bit headstrong, thinking that we were going to get a nice spring here instead. I definitely did not realize that we had another like $1 billion in longs that we're sitting on open on the exchanges. Would be nice to have another way to measure those as time goes on, but you know, that's the nature of the game. And again here, guys, we've seen this in the past where we follow under the stock to flow model. We have corrections, and then we kind of end up riding around the stock to flow model itself. So Bitcoin getting to $100,000 by August is still a potential in my mind, but it's just a slow crawl, and it's likely not created by retail investors. Institutions are just generally better investors. They know to think about the long term. They always have capital on the side to buy these moments. And I think it taught a lot of people a very valuable lesson. I bet you there's a lot of new players here that had opened up these extraordinarily high leverage positions that went, oh, well, I'll never do that again. And sometimes lessons are expensive. So keep that in mind. I think it's important to always know that it's always important to know the kind of value of something, right? And personally, I think that the value of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and this entire sector is the only solution we have to a failing fiat global economy. And that's the more dangerous aspect. Who cares what the price is? If we can't fix what's broken, we're all fucked. But look at this, 50% drops almost all across the board. And this is what we talked about when people run for the door, it just goes down, 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 down on everything. Yeah, 50% almost across the board. Beautiful technically. I think that, again, people that understand the long-term story as an investor, go read the book Dan Dow, read the book 100 Baggers. I fundamentally, I believe the value here is extraordinary because there are no other solutions I have seen to these problems. So it's just for fun. Let's go. We talked about this in our other video, but I want to kind of go over this again because I think it is probably the more important part of the conversation. Lumber prices. So lumber prices, here you go. Here's a nice chart of lumber prices. So we were averaging around $200 for lumber for almost a decade. And then in August, we jumped up to $1,600. Oh no, get out of the way, assholes. Bloomberg, you guys suck. Okay, here we go. Here's the monthly lumber price increase. So here you go. From 2019, we stayed under $200. We jumped up to $250, and now we're up. Actually, we're even higher than this now because this only goes to August 2020. Yeah, there we go. We are at $1,400. So we've seen a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, a 600 to 700% increase in lumber prices in the last year. And this is what we've always been more concerned about, is the people at the lower portions of the life period. Like, I got enough capital to do what I want. Most of my friends have enough capital to do whatever they want, although we definitely lost a little bit of perceived value in the last 72 hours. This is the more worrying part to me. You know, ultimately, guys, when we're looking at this, like, understand that if you have capital, you're in the privileged few. There are a lot of people that don't have jobs, don't have an economic survival path in front of them, don't have a way to produce like a thriving mentality. And that's what worries me more than anything else we're looking at in the markets, because at this point, it really doesn't matter what you have. You can get, if you end up becoming the version of what people consider the enemy, like happened in the Bolshevik Revolution, it is a dangerous place to be. So yes, we are, again, here, it looks like we're about to see a rollover in the S&P 500, probably get a bounce to around 390. I think circuit breakers here are around 4%. So if we come down, we're going to probably end up hitting a circuit breaker on the S&P 500 as well. These are going to send shocks down the market. And let's just for fun try to remind ourselves, because I don't know where this is at, stimulus package for USA. And this is another important part, just where are they putting the money? April 15th, 2021. So the American Rescue Plan provides $1,400 of economic payments for people, and this is not everyone, for just American citizens, U.S. citizens, people who are eligible. You do not need to do anything to receive your payment. It will be by direct deposit. So that is, I think they're trying to start that here in the next month or two. And again, this is what kind of helped start this, is that people had extra capital. They didn't know where to put it. They started buying stocks. They started buying Bitcoin. It really jacked the price up. They started using leverage. They started playing with options. It really attracted a whole new level of, a whole new kind of like beginner level of investor to all these sectors. Just people looking to get out of cash, get into anything else, especially when you saw overnight millionaires from Dogecoin. Just for fun, what's Dogecoin at right now? It's always a good sentiment leader as well. Dogecoin is at 34 cents. It's actually held up relatively well, which is incredible if you ask me. So what does this mean? Okay, first off, yeah, we hit scenario 2. I think we get a reaccumulation after decline, effectively. I don't believe the bull market is over, because if it is, we're all fucked. Because currently we're witnessing one of the most disastrous moments in human history in inflation and the supply chain breaking. That's not going to bode well for anyone, no matter how many millions of dollars you have. You can't buy your way out of things breaking like that. Ask, what's the guy's name who started Apple? Don't even remember. Probably doesn't even matter. Steve Jobs. Ask him how good his money did when he started dying. Nothing. And if the economic system is about to die, the amount of money you have becomes worthless almost overnight. Your car is worthless. Your house, as long as you can keep them safe from other people trying to take shit from you. So this is a very difficult economic conversation that we're in general. And again, I believe Bitcoin, fundamentally Ethereum, are the only solutions we have on the table. This is the question of, well, what's the value versus the price? Okay, yes, the price dropped. Has the value changed? I don't think so. I don't see another way out of this economic disaster. I really don't. And if that's the case, this is kind of our road to redemption, is building a new system that's more productive and more inclusive for everyone. So it's kind of fun, always exciting moment. I think, again, for the longer term investors, it just represents a new buying opportunity. I do not think the bull market is over. I think this is a really nice welcomed reprieve. We saw 30 to 40% drops like this in Bitcoin almost every 2 months in the last bull market. So it's not unheard of. again, you know, this is the nature of the beast. Make sure that you're always willing to prepare and play for the long game. You know, I think investors fundamentally do really well if they can think about decades. You know, you can ignore inflation, you can ignore the asset price fluctuation, and you can really start to think about what happens when you do this for 10 to 20 years. You know, and this is kind of the downside, and we've gone over this, is a lot of people entered the market way too late. Most of the private bear family made their positions and entries around $9,000. Like Bitcoin could come all the way down to 20 grand and we're still up. It's like 2 to 3x basically. So this does not hurt. It's just like a loss of unrealized paper gains effectively. But yeah, there you go. It was a temporary distribution moment, but I don't believe it's a full scale distribution. I think it's just shaking out the retail hands, and the retail hands are probably gone for a while now. But again, rebalance the system, get rid of all of that leverage. Again, an extraordinarily high amount of leverage in there that I did not realize. You're looking at 432 million from Ethereum, $48 million in XRP longs, $39 million in LTC longs. This is fantastic. So I'll take a look at a few of you guys' thoughts and questions. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this content. Again, this is why I think the most important part is to do your own due diligence, do your own study, understand that these market moves are happen all the time. The longer you've been here, the more used to it you get, and the more prepared you are to make sure that you're not making mistakes in those moments. So I will do the same thing. I'll end up acquiring more Bitcoin here in a few more days when it's that time of the month, and just kind of ignore the price for the moment. Because again, my current value sentiment is that the fiat system is fucked. Our economy is fucked. We don't have a way to solve that. Bitcoin and Ethereum, these decentralized versions of governance, are the only possible way I've seen in my lifetime for us to solve that. If that's not valuable to you, I don't know what is. So even though the price changed, to me, the value stays the same. This is our solution. This is how we fix what the generations left from us with a broken fiat system that has no backing, no fundamentals. They just print it randomly whenever they want. They can produce all this capital. And although it looks like it's going to be a bumpy ride to get to where we want over the next 10 years, I still believe that the value over the next 10 years probably brings us to tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin at that moment as well. So let's take a look here at where we're at right now. Yeah, look at that. Look at the dip on that liquidation. That liquidation moment was 38%. Crazy to see that there were so many longs probably still open from January. But yeah, beautiful rounded top. I was really aiming at this rising gradient bottom. I was super excited. Maybe that's what did me wrong. But also, again, remember, guys, more important than more important than your exits are your entries. We entered most of our positions back here. So we're quite happy with that. Now, there are a few other positions I took midterm, like Serum, that has I'm basically back at zero at, or maybe even lower technically. Yeah, even lower. I think most of the entries are around $6.70, $7.80. Yeah, so definitely underwater on my Serum position, and that was not a small position. So we'll keep that in mind. But again, I guess the point here is to understand that I think this is the only way we solve these economic problems that we're having. So regardless of what the price goes to today, I don't know how we solve the problems that we're seeing. Actually, let's see what the dollar did throughout the last 24 hours as well. Kind of an interesting side point. Yeah, the dollar stayed flat. But again, what we need to remember is that this is the broken problem. The broken problem is that a very few select people have control of the entire economic system, and that's not you. That's not me. Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are solutions to that long-term problem. And even, again, although the price has changed, I don't think the value of what these solutions bring to the table has changed. I think a lot of big investors and companies now realize that, and will continue to realize that more and more, that you can't just sit on a failing fiat asset. So it's a difficult one. It's definitely going to be a difficult time. The recovery here is not going to be fast. Again, I think that we'll probably end up riding through this reaccumulation after decline moment for quite some time. That puts us probably at least till August before we see any type of reprieve, basically, which is boring. That sucks. More than anything, that's boring. Okay, we'll take a look at a few of you guys' thoughts and questions. Rob says, you mentioned a book in one of your last videos about the Weimar hyperinflation. Oh, yes, I would love to share that one. It's called Dying of Money. Sadly, not on Audible, but you can download the book. I think still you can download and buy the book. No, currently unavailable. Well, there you go. Out of stock. Very popular book this year, apparently. Let's see, are there other versions of this on Amazon here? Ah, there you go. $49 paperback. Jesus Christ. Yeah, if that's not inflation at its finest, I'm not sure what is, right? Okay, let's see here. From Goodreads. Let's see if Goodreads is selling it for a more tangible price. Not for sale. Okay, so, well, there you go. We're witnessing inflation even on books. But if you can ever get your hands on this book for less than $50, Dying of Money is a great version of... Holy fuck, a $50 book? Well, anyways, there you go. So inflation is a real thing. It's happening. That's not a good sign, guys. This is not, it's not a good sign. So keep that in mind. But yeah, it's called Dying of Money. If you can find it for under $50, that's a steal. Jesus Christ. Okay. If it gets bad, Ethereum and Bitcoin can't fix things. Yes, that's the biggest worry, is that right now consumer inflation goes to such a crazy rate that we end up in revolution and war. And then I have no idea. All of these things will basically become irrelevant. How much money you have will basically become irrelevant unless you already have a few hundred million. Like even if you have 10 million, like you're going to be a target real fast. Like you driving around in a nice car, bang, someone's going to pop you off. And that's the scary part. We've seen this happen in other countries before. We've seen it's happening right now in Colombia. You know, it's happening right now in Argentina and Venezuela. So it might be a game of hopscotch to find out where you're going to end up wanting to be for that one. So keep that in mind. Arcane Bear, we all agree that there's issues with fiat, but can you acknowledge the blatant corruption in crypto? Exchanges crashed. Exchanges crashed. Well, first off, FTX did not crash. FTX worked perfectly fine. The downside is that companies like Binance, fucking Coinbase, make all this money and are fucking stupid enough not to just get their servers up to par. Good job on FTX for keeping their shit together and knowing to actually provide a product that users can use when they most want to. So I don't think that's corruption. I think that's just a pure scope of ignorance in these companies' wanton willingness to focus on, hey, look, we're providing you a new coin on Coinbase instead of just upgrading their servers to be able to handle the bullshit. I don't think that's corruption. I think that's actually ignorance more than anything. Yeah, this is definitely being driven by the amount of... So Tyler Brown says, I disagree with you that there are very specific assets that have had significant supply side issues driving inflation. That is 100% the case. Like, we clearly know that's the case. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous sentiment. You are definitely wrong on that one. It doesn't even matter what economic system you're using, whether it's US dollar, or otherwise. The price of lumber is up almost 10x. Doesn't matter what currency you're using. That's pretty devastating to everything, because that hits the bottom user the most, right? That doesn't hit people like me who's like, well, I own my house, own my car, own my assets, own multiple businesses, I've got cash flow, right? It's not affecting me, but it's going to affect other people that want to build a house, people that work in construction. It really has a downside effect on the lowest of the income and the impoverished, and that's the most difficult. It's like, you look at the supply side of things right now. Price of corn, right? Let's just look at the price of corn right now. 59-year historical chart on the price of corn. This is probably not going to be fun. Loading interactive chart. Yeah, there you go. Let's go 10-year. Oh, wow. Look at this. Corn was hyper expensive back in 2012. That's crazy. I did not expect that. Let's go all the way back to 1960. Okay, so yeah, we're peaking out. Back in 2012, corn, we already started to see consumer inflation probably start to hit the cables. Let's see, just for fun, Costa Rican colone to USD. Let's see what my local currency is at right now, to see if I'm seeing any local inflation. Yeah, see, here's the other thing too. Look at the local inflation. So I moved back even in 2000, let's go max. So I moved here at around 2011, and we've seen a 30% inflation in the local currency here where I live. So yeah, definitely these are not good signs. That means everything we want to import has gotten 30% more expensive. So yeah, riots are generally not too far away at that moment. Yeah, so guys, we talked about this secondary moment, that this could very easily turn to distribution, and it did very quickly. And we came down to this secondary moment. I think we're going to build up here. It's probably going to take a while though. If not, if this bull market is over, if we start to see other assets start to explode as well, God damn, we have much bigger troubles than your portfolio, I promise you. And that's the real scary part. Personally, I think this is just a nice, healthy correction. I think that this area here, this reaccumulation cycle, will be quite nice. It'll bring back the more savvy long-term investors. But yeah, we have a much bigger problems on our hands if we don't figure these things out. That's for damn sure. Rathcon says, this is what happens when you keep printing money, or paper currency for that matter. Huge inflation happening for the long term. Dollar's supposed to collapse. Fed keeps pumping. Yeah. Yeah, again, I think that this is just a temporary reprieve in our way to continue the bull market. I'm not worried about that. As I said, I removed some risk off the table around 56,000 back here just because I didn't know what was going to happen. And well, now we know what happened. But again, I was already out of a good chunk just to make sure I was okay. For that reason, just the unknowingness to me is a strong enough sentiment to go by for that matter. But let's take a look at a few more of the thoughts and questions here. Spudman says, "You're the man, Arcane." Yeah, thanks for that. I love you guys. That's sweet. When was the last time you bought a book? I buy books frequently, but not like paperback books. The only paperback books I have now are books that have been given to me as gifts. Dr. Crypto says, I have land greenhouses. I think these are great investments. I probably should do a video by the waterfall today just to mellow things out. It is definitely because of money supply, Tyler Brown. It clearly is because of money supply. I can see it firsthand. I mean, just go out shopping. Well, maybe not today, but like a month ago. It was a planned crash. Sure, you could say everything's planned at that point. The universe is divine, probably knows a hell of a lot more than we do. Have you looked into the 2013 cycle double top scenario? Yeah, I think that this is just a cycle change, and yeah, it'll look like a top. And again, most retail investors are probably gone for a while, so it's only going to be the savvy investors who continue to show up. It'll be interesting to see here too. But yeah, we definitely saw a massive amount of supply come onto the market. I'm still waiting for Glassnode's data to update just to see how much came on the market there, but we'll know in a few hours. Let's take a look. Yeah, it hasn't updated yet. Yeah, we've been jumping up basically since April 21st. But again, it hasn't given us the data insight to how much came on the market in the last 24 hours, which is probably significant based off the $10,000 Bitcoins that were liquidated. Do you think we'll reach a new all-time high in this bull run? If we don't get to $100,000 Bitcoin over the next 2 to 3 years, this whole ecosystem fails and we're all fucked because I don't see another solution. That's my personal sentiment. You better figure out how to grow food and manage horses and chickens and cows and shit. Because if we can't fix this, we're all seriously going back to farmers, guys. I mean, I don't think that's the case, but that's the real downside here. 4% inflation is not the end of the world. We've definitely had way more than 4% inflation. I don't know where you guys are getting these random numbers from. like we in Costa Rica alone in the last 5 years has been 30%. Okay, that's not 4% inflation. And again, I could probably use TradingView for this. Let's go. I've never used TradingView to look up corn. Let's do it here. Look at all those short trades come in at around 2 a.m. 2 a.m. 2 a.m. Bing, 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 bing. Definitely want to be in Asia from now on. That's how I feel about this whole thing. I'm always asleep when the fun shit happens. Okay, let's go corn. Corn cash. I don't even know what I'm looking at here. Corn futures. Let's take a look at both of these. By the way, I don't know where we're going to end up here. I'm just taking a look. Okay, so yeah, that's inflation on a very primary product. Corn is hyper important. That's how we feed most things on this planet still. That's at least, and just from August alone, we're up 100, and we were at a peak 130%. That's real world inflation on basic needs for people. Maddie Market says they're looking at the CPI from the Fed. Yeah, fucking ignore anything the Fed says. They're trying to hide inflation from you. It's here in plain sight. Corn is up 130%. That's a basic consumer product need that's up an extraordinary amount. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's get rid of this too. Corn futures. Here we go. Here's a bit more data just to give some relevance here. Yeah, so we're kind of at a low here again at around $318 for, what is that, a bushel or something? We'll say a bushel of corn, a bag of corn, 132%. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Let's see what else. What's a general average consumer product? Lumber was crazy. Look at the lumbers. Is it just lumber? Probably lumber futures, I guess. Lumber liquidation, lumber LBS on the CME. Lumber's futures, that'll be interesting to see. I wonder how much data we have here. We know that lumber is already up like 600%, which is just astronomical. Hey, there we go. A 45% dip in lumber. That's nice. That's good for everyone. Yeah, guys, that's what worries me the most. Again, with Bitcoin, I believe it's the solution to this problem. That's the value I see here. Again, I'll just reiterate. I believe we're going to see a reaccumulation after decline, and then we're going to continue higher. If we don't, we have much bigger problems to worry about than how much Bitcoin is worth. So, not many other choices here. Let's see. Let's take a look. So everyone's saying Elon Musk just tweeted. We'll just stay live with you guys for a little while. I'm sure everyone's enjoying the live stream on this crazy, chaotic moment. Just bought a truckload of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yep. Sounds like a smart idea. Let's see. What did Musk tweet? Tesla has diamond hands. There you go, Musk. This is the tweet we like to see. This is sweet of you. This is the memeing Musk that we've grown to love over the years. Giga Berlin suppliers pre-accelerate. Nice, great work. This is a great tweet by Musk. I like that. Thanks, Musk. This is very, very kind of you to be. Let everyone know that you're still in the game. So again, this is the fun part. All this liquidation over the last is probably all heavily leveraged people. We wanted that out of the system. Again, leads into this reaccumulation after decline. The downside here is that, again, well, first off, if you didn't enter the market early, you're fucking feeling bad about this one. That's for sure. If you made positions and you entered the bull market when Arcane Bear family did way back here, and you know to stick around for the long term, because it's better to pay attention to everything when nobody's paying attention to anything, instead of paying attention to everything when everybody's paying attention to these things. You generally don't want to follow the masses. That this, again, to me just looks like a reaccumulation moment. But we're going to get to find out. And again, I think that if this isn't, we're all so fucked. And I really hope that that's not the case. We will have much bigger problems on our hands to worry about then. if that tweet pumps the market is weak. Yeah, that tweet won't pump the market. Musk is just letting everyone know that Tesla didn't sell. But we already knew that. Tweeted out the other day. I'm like, dude, you'll have to file an 8K if you did sell. So don't tweet these things. Like, you should probably give your CFO a bit more time. And there you go. He didn't sell. And again, remember that they took all of their positions back here at around 30,000. So again, what we witnessed is just a large amount of leverage being taken out of the system, and good riddance probably, right? We're going to probably jump. We're probably going to jump and make a nice little reaccumulation after decline. That would be fantastic. So again, if you're new to the markets, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest doing a lot of study and being patient. Again, took out a bunch of our positions here. I've got capital on the side to take in more here. Definitely missed this $29,000 bottom. That was sweet. But again, I think we're probably going to get a few months of this reaccumulation after decline. And I think, and as I've said in multiple videos already, this is the real opportunity, is that the analog that we witnessed back here is that here you're like, oh, look, it's a distribution. See, the bull market is over. And then what do you get? You get a distributional moment, and then you get bang, 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 and then just a rocket move afterwards. So I suspect that this is just a very healthy moment for the Bitcoin ecosystem in general. And also, guys, it's also always important to remember, like if you've been following the Bear family quite some time, we've been following the markets heavily since the pandemic started effectively, just because we saw these nice reaccumulation patterns start to take place. More than understanding the bull market in the last part of the cycle, it's way more important to understand that this is where you want to be like 2 years from now. You want to be getting into the markets into the next cycle effectively. And again, if we don't fix this problem that we have, I'm not even worried about how much money I have because it'll never be enough in a revolution unless you just buy yourself a private jet and get the fuck out of one country and try to hopscotch countries between riots and revolutions and failures of government. That doesn't sound fun for anybody. We're all hoping and praying that that does not happen. So keep that in mind as well. Still down 60K. Sophie and Kotav says, I bought the Grand Canyon dip. This is so fun. Still down 60K. Yeah, don't worry. I watched my account fluctuate like mid six figures there. But again, I've been here for a while. Doesn't concern me. Yes, you always think, oh my God, I could have built like 3 houses and bought like 10 more acres or some shit. But I'm here for the long term. Again, I don't want to sell assets just because the price changes. And that's a really big portion of this story. And already look at the liquidation wick on Bitcoin here at around 40%. It's huge. Again, with these, with Coinbase going down, Binance going down, guys, FTX stayed up. I think really the portion here is that what we've witnessed is very poor business operations. Like Brian Armstrong, get your shit together, fix your services. CZ, quit trying to build new fucking products on Binance and just make sure your goddamn website works, or build a product that always functions. And hey, also guys, more importantly, if you're using any of their services, often you can use their application and not have that downside. But FTX stayed up perfectly fine. And I think it's because they actually care about their product instead of just trying to constantly build new products. Got a meeting I have to jump on here in about 8 minutes, and one of you guys asked a question saying, can you relate today's market action of Bitcoin fractals by zooming in and out like you have done in the past? Okay, that's a great plan. Let's go back and do that right now. We're gonna have to open up a different Bitcoin chart here to have that data. So yeah, look here. Look how quickly we fell once we hit the regression line too. It's another key area to keep an eye on. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin reaccumulation patterns that we've been following. But more importantly, let's go back and pretend we're in 2014. So here we go, guys. We've reversed in time. It's 2014, 2015. Where do you want to get in? The bottom of the market cycle. You had 2 years to do it. But you know what? As a retail investor, you weren't paying attention. As a smart investor, you were. Arcane Bear started the channel on March 2017 because we saw this breakout of the box. And I was like, shit, the bull market is starting, and we got to enjoy that. But more importantly, this is the area where you want to be making most of your entries. So you just have very limited downside risk, right? Okay, great. Let's say you've made some good entries, right? Boom, boom. The first kind of breakout in SOS is fantastic. Now, look how many times we had 40% drops on Bitcoin. One, here's another 40% drop. Two, and then there was another one. Well, 30% drop here, just within the bull market cycle itself. So generally, again, it's the long-term story that's the most valuable, right? Because you go back here, you keep look at all these reaccumulation cycles that we've gone through, where you see a nice, beautiful reaccumulation pattern. Here we are back in 2013. Here's our spring, buying climax, or spring, first setup, and then break out of the box, and up we go. Nice. My girlfriend is on TV. I'm sure Robert is talking about Kathy Wood. It's the only person he knows I have like a personality crush on. I think Kathy Wood is hot. I hope you hear that, Kathy. I'd love to have you on the show. I won't flirt with you, I promise. So again, this is always the difficult part. Is that people they're like, oh my God, I bought Bitcoin at $200. What a horrible idea. I've got to drag through the market cycle. I've lost X amount of dollars. But if you're patient, if you understand that market cycles keep repeating, you keep seeing these reaccumulation patterns, you keep seeing higher highs. We know that the value of Bitcoin is still probably undervalued if it does become a monetary layer for the entire freaking globe. And then what do you get? You get these reaccumulation patterns, and one of the big arguments right now is that really here's the reaccumulation pattern, and here's our first 40% dip. And this time, remember, we had way more liquidation here than it was ever possible in 2017, so it was extreme, 50%, right? The likelihood of this being that extreme just because of leverage is very, very high. So keep that in mind. Anyways. Give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe if you find this content valuable. Again, I'm a long-term investor. I'm also a value investor. I like to find the moments when everybody's scared shitless, kind of like now, to make further investments. So after my, you don't need to use the log chart, by the way, Mr. Chronic Carl. You clearly don't know what you're talking about. Reaccumulation patterns are not on log settings. Reaccumulation patterns work perfectly on linear settings. Do you see how well we did here with our spring? Fucking nailed it. So fuck you, noob. I don't see Chronic Carl. I didn't see you here in March or April. Sounds like you're the noob. Go somewhere else. Okay, boop de boop. Love it. Awesome. I'm gonna jump on my meeting here. Thank you guys. Again, if you're new to the market, just keep researching and studying. It's best to know that over the course of decades, you can make hundreds of millions of dollars by playing these games. Don't get scared by a little bit of the nonsense in between. Again, if we have much bigger problems to worry about than Bitcoin's price if we can't solve the monetary problems that we have later on down the road. So anyways, this is T with the Arcane Bear. Signing off for the rest of the day. Remember to subscribe to all of our other channels if you like this kind of content. Maybe we'll do a video by the waterfall today, just to talk about general wealth and health. It's so much more important than money. You might die in a few weeks. Like, don't fret too much. You can regret everything, but it's super important to remember how valuable life is. I can't reiterate that enough. I mean, one of the reasons why I think I've done well in life, or at least for myself, is because I have a great appreciation for the simple things. I love watching the water on the ground or the wind blow through the trees and shit like that. I think the more you learn how to appreciate the simple richnesses and wealth, the easier it is to actually acquire more of monetary wealth as well, because they're a very similar story. Anyways, thank you guys all for joining us on this wild and crazy market ride. We will see you again on the next episode. This is T with the Arcane Bear signing off, and boom.